You've just signed out. Now it's time to tune in. Welcome to Sign Out with Kyle the PA, the commute companion for PAs, PA students, and pre-PAs. Real stories from real PAs across every corner of the profession. Your journey continues here. Here's your host, Kyle the PA.
Hey everyone, how's everyone doing? My name is Alex. I'm the current treasurer for PAs in Asian Health.
And I'm Kyle. I'm going to be the new host of our show.
We're very excited to introduce you to this upcoming show called Sign Out with Kyle the PA.
We're going to be interviewing PAs from across the country that work in unique positions, interesting fields, both clinical and non-clinical, and hear about their stories, learn about their day-to-day lives, and figure out what it looks like to be a PA in all different types of ways in the United States.
Our purpose is really to, when we produce this, is how do we be part of your journey as you are signing out with your colleague commuting home or going to work.
So I'm really excited. I'm glad PAs in Asian Health is having me for this and allowing me to moderate this. I'm really excited for all of you to join us. So make sure you follow us on Instagram, join PAs in Asian Health.
Now that we're going to be passing the baton over to you to moderate, I think it's only fair for our audience now to learn about who Kyle the PA is. So tell me, who are you, Kyle?
Obviously I'm a PA. I've been a PA since 2019. I live here in New York City, greatest city in the world, in my opinion. I worked in internal medicine at New York Presbyterian Weill Cornell Medical Center for about 4 years. Then I switched to interventional or advanced gastroenterology about 2 years ago. Love my job, love what I do. But like everyone, there are things I don't like too. But for the most part, I really like what I do. I love being a PA. But I also like to stay busy. I like to constantly find other opportunities as a PA and also not as a PA. But as a PA, I also work for a health tech company as a clinical AI analyst. I also have always been really interested and passionate about teaching. So I'm an adjunct professor at Quinnipiac University, my alma mater. I teach a course on barriers to wellness, barriers to healthcare delivery, systemic issues in communities of color and underrepresented communities. And within that, I also use creative writing and poetry as a medium to access some of these difficult topics and themes to discuss. And I'm a writer and a poet. That's something that I've done since high school, college, and has always been a really important part of my life. Having a creative medium to work with has always been really been an important part of my life, separate from my journey as a PA.
That's a lot. So GIPA to informatics to adjunct professor to the creative side of creative writing and poetry. Some of the challenging there's one spectrum where I see that there's standardization, where there's rigidness, and then there's another side where it's pure art. First thing I'm going to ask you is medicine and art.
Yeah. A lot of people ask me about it. It seems very counter. Yeah, they're very different. Yeah. What are you curious about? People ask me about it a lot though.
I think it's because some would argue because of a lot of bureaucracy and standardization in medicine that we're losing that art side of it. And I think art's important. Let's just say not art. Let's just say creativity is important because that's how you innovate and discover new ways of managing things and tackling it. I'm not saying like the RFK type of word. I don't want to go into politics, but like that's completely, to my mind, is a little bit very far-fetched and a little bit bizarre for my sake. But there has to be some creativeness when it comes to the things that we do in medicine. So that's why it's interesting to me because when you're in an academic institution, there's only one way or two ways or three ways of doing things. And the boundaries to change things becomes difficult. It's not doable, but that stunts the ability to be more creative on certain areas of medicine. So that's the whole reason why I wanted to correlate those two. Let's go back to the GI part of thing. What excites you about what you do in the GI medicine as a PA?
Yeah, I knew that coming out of PA school, I wanted to grow first my medicine knowledge, and working in an inpatient setting, internal or hospital medicine, would be a great way to do that. And I knew that coming to a big city like New York City would expose me to a lot of different disease processes, patient populations, both medical and non-medical or like socioeconomic barriers for folks. And it allowed me to see the breadth of what medicine could be in patient setting. But after a few years, I realized I wanted to really feel like I could hone in on something and be really good at it. And there was an opportunity in a pretty specialized area within GI, which is this advanced endoscopy or interventional gastroenterology. And so without knowing that much about the field, I was like, you know what, let's just do it. I'm going to learn as much as I can, try to get as good as I can at it. And for the most part, for 2 years, I will say I love that every day I can just get like incrementally a little bit better, learn a little bit more about this specialty that I've always done a little bit of in internal medicine. But now that it's all that I do, there's it. I feel like in some ways, by narrowing what I do with my practice, it really opens up how much I can do. I I work in like a consultant role, and I'm the only advanced GIPA in the hospital. And so sometimes it can be a big nuisance being the only advanced GIPA, but it's cool to know that it's like that is my role. And people in the hospital know me as that person, that go-to guy. If I think my patient has choledocholithiasis, or like I think I might need ERCP, or I think that my patient has a goo, like I got to hit up Kyle. I got to reach out to Kyle. Like he's going to be the person I got to talk to about this. And obviously that can be stressful and overwhelming being that go-to guy, but it's also really exciting to know that I've carved out this space for myself within the hospital system at Cornell and become that go-to guy. And also being in a setting where I can see patients and know that for the most part, I can offer something generally that might just make their lives better or might really turn their lives around. And getting that component of it's very fulfilling for me, like in a broad professional sense, but also like on a person to person, on like a human level, that is what gets me out of bed every day and makes me come back from work feeling really excited about what the kind of work I'm doing.
What would you say? Like you said, you graduated 2019, right? So let's say your 2019 self is looking at your world now. What do you think? Would your 2019 self be like, oh, this is going to be great? Is that your expectation?
I started as a PA in like late 2019, which was only I started 5 months before COVID-19 hit.
Oh, yeah. Love
So
COVID.
yeah, in New York City. And so I think so for sure, I did not see that coming. So there was definitely a big element of be prepared for anything that's going to happen, and things are going to be tough. And the transition from PA student to PA is a lot tougher than I thought it was going to be, but it's also a lot more fulfilling than I expected. The transition between specialties is a lot tougher than I thought it was going to be, but also worth it if it's for the right reasons, for the right thing. The things that I think about when I look back at who I was in 2019 as a new PA versus who I am now, I think some of the biggest differences is that I didn't know what was most important to me, what was most valuable to me as a PA in 2019. I just knew that I want to learn, I want to grow, and I want to get better in every sense clinically. And then over the years, I think with anyone as they get older, they realize what's really important to me, what's really valuable to me, what about practicing medicine or not practicing medicine clinically is really important to me. What about my personal life in conjunction with my professional life is really important to me? And what are some of these aspects that are more important than other parts? Is my schedule really important, or is the quality of the time that I spend with patients more important? And that's something that really took me like 6 years to really realize and learn.
Yeah, and I feel like that still continues to evolve as we continue to grow. I feel the same way as well too. I think our priorities also shifts a little as well too. So that's interesting. So how about besides the GI part, going into the informatics, how did you get into that? Because I think a lot of the folks that are listening will be intrigued to hear how your ability to pivot, because you're not just locking yourself in the four walls of GI, you're also exploring other stuff. You're diversifying, which I really commend you, because I always tell people to not just be good at one thing. You need to be good at multiple things, or at least be aware of multiple things and try to be good at it. So what led you to the informatics world?
I appreciate I think the respect is mutual, because you too are also a person who is professionally and personally has a very diverse portfolio and career. But for me, I agree with everything you said. And I think as people, I think we're curious people who are capable of doing more than just a single job or being good at a single thing. Like, I feel like you look at when you're younger and you genuinely believe, like, oh, I want to be a doctor and a firefighter, or I want to be a painter and a pianist, or you have these grand ideas of what your life and world could or would want to be. But then I feel like when people start their first full-time job, I think a lot of times life and circumstances box them in, but I do think that we box ourselves in a lot of the time. And I think if you allow yourself to believe that you can, and obviously if the circumstances allow for it too, because people
Right.
have families and kids and folks they have to take care of, and it may not be like in a financial and times privilege to do things. But if you do have the privilege, then I think that there is a world out there to expand your career beyond one 40-hour a week job. Because 40 hours a week, it is a lot, but it's not as much as you think when you look at how many more hours there are in the day, in the week. And for me, like working as for a health tech company, I've just always been curious, like, what does it look like be, to use my clinical knowledge and experience in a non-clinical setting? And so I had a friend attending I used to work with at the hospital. He worked for this company and I saw him at a wedding and I was like, hey, if you ever have an opportunity and are looking for a PA to hire, I'm super curious about what you do and what that looks like. So I'd love to do that in addition to what I do already. And a few months later, an opportunity came up and he reached out to me. He was like, hey, I thought about that conversation we had at the wedding. Would you want to come work for me and for us? And I was like, sure, why not? I was like, I'm not going to leave my full-time job, but I'm really interested, and maybe I'll keep doing it. Maybe I won't, but at least I'll try.
Yeah, you said a few keywords: being curious, networking, and following through is very important. I think a lot of people can be curious. Some people will network and explore, but the third thing is following through is something that not a lot of people have. So, that's very important as well too. Being able to follow through and really making things happen and holding yourself accountable for the things that you were saying you're going to do. That's important. So great. What have you learned so far within that informatics journey of yours? Anything that you would share with your peers? Is that something like you highly recommend, or is it something that may soon down the line be like, oh crap, I just signed my job away or something like that? I don't know. Everyone's fear of AI. Everyone's fear of AI. I'm just saying. Everyone's fear of AI.
It's just everyone's thinking, everyone's
Yeah.
work. Yeah.
Like,
We're all
you, Kyle, you're making my job disappear.
yeah. I successfully trained the AI to replace all the PAs in New York City and America. No, I don't think, I think if there's one thing I learned from a PA perspective, it's that there's a lot of really cool, interesting things that PAs can be doing outside the hospital and outside the clinical setting if we look for it and if we seek it out.
Sounds like
even, but you have to be looking. You have to be looking, and you have to really present to other people that we are this professional that has a lot of clinical knowledge to offer, and it could be very advantageous to you. And in the role that I do specifically, like, it could be any provider that does it. It could be an MD, it could be a PA, it could be NP, as long as they have clinical knowledge and experience and are able to extract that from, specifically, we do like medical scribing type of technology, then why not a PA? Why not a PA?
Yeah.
And I think that's what I'm realizing more in these like non-clinical fields, is that if you need someone with clinical experience who has previously diagnosed, prescribed, treated patients, then companies and businesses are always thinking MDs, but why not a PA? We do those things too. And so if we have this knowledge and experience to offer, then why don't we put ourselves out there to be in those kinds of positions, to be hired by these kinds of companies?
Yeah, it's amazing how the profession has grown vertically, horizontally, like in really different fields, C-suite, C-levels to like even PAs in Secret Services. I've met one. PAs in NIH, PAs that are a chef. They're chef PAs. Because I think food is medicine is a big push. There's been a big push on just food and medicine as a concept itself. Yeah, I mean, it's GIPA. That should correlate with what you guys. But yeah, I do see a lot of PAs in a lot of different fields and like cross field as well. And it's exciting. I think we're living in a very exciting time. Let's talk a little bit about poetry. Like you're an author. I think many people probably will also want to know about that journey. Like how did that come about and what made you decide to write a book? Tell us what your book is.
My book it's a full-length collection of poetry titled Good Son. It's published by Sundress Publications in 2024. I also have a chapbook. It's like a thinner, smaller volume of poetry called How to Build a House. That was published back in 2018. But yeah, I think being creative, being artistic, writing, I think these are all things that I'm a strong believer in this. I think these are things that we're all capable of doing. I always meet people who work in healthcare and work in STEM who say, I don't have a creative cell in my body, but I don't think that's true at all, really, because I think I'm a strong believer that like art and literature is really a way of us and people trying to describe or trying to make sense of what's oftentimes indescribable. And we do that every day in our own lives all the time already. When you talk about in medicine, you work with one attending one week or one day and you work with a different attending the next day or the next week, they both have different styles. You would say they have very different styles to how they practice medicine. They have different styles to how they do surgery or do their procedures. You could say it's an art. They have different arts to doing it. In your personal life, in your relationship, or in your marriage or your partnership, your marriage or partnership isn't going to look the exact same as someone else's. You can't just copy someone else's partnership and marriage and relationship and apply it to your own and create a beautiful union. You have to discover and understand and learn what the art of your relationship is. And so I think in a lot of ways, we're constantly figuring out what the style is of our everyday lives and what the art in the arc of our lives looks. And that's a craft that we're working on and refining every day. And for me, I've just found a medium through which I can make that art a tangible or a concrete thing. And for me, it's with writing, with literature, so specifically with poetry. But for other people, that might be music, that might be singing, that might be watercolors, it might be dance. It's just our ways of trying to make sense and understand and make the world a little bit more tangible for us.
Yeah, I can already think of my background is neurosurgery and general surgery as well too. And the poetry I could think of is beep, the ER's paging me. There's a consult. There's a consult. I'm pretty sure I can write a poem about that.
So there's a lot of sensory details there.
Yeah. And this you can probably make a poem out of July 1st when the new interns are coming in as well too.
I'm still living in the wake of the July.
Oh, it's September. Yeah, it's still very early.
Yeah, we're still feeling it in the hospital.
Okay, appreciate your time with me and with the audience, and obviously it was a great way to learn about our moderator for Sign Out with Kyle the PA, and now everyone knows who Kyle the PA is. Looking forward to doing this project with you, and hopefully this all works well and we do 5 seasons, 10 seasons, whatever case may be.
I love that. Yeah, Alex, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to work with PAs in Asian Health on this. Such a great organization, and I'm excited to talk to some folks and I'm excited to learn too. I'm excited to just talk to people.
Thank you very much. look forward, and everyone, please stay tuned. Again, a lot more to come, and we will be bringing a lot of prestigious guests, seasoned folks that you may not even guess that work in that field. So a lot more to come. Thank you, and stay tuned. All right.
Thanks.